kitchen window, coffee brewing, breakfast on the griddle, kids around the table, pencils and books, ready for a day with mama's loving looks. Laundry in the washer, chores on the list, homeschool lessons, can't let a moment miss. Science on the porch, history by the fire, stories of the past, hopes and dreams inspired. Georgie finds a rhythm in the chaos and the calm. Housewife, homeschool, where she feels she belongs. Streaming from her living room, sharing all her charms. Georgie lives her life wrapped in her family's arms. Afternoon rolls in, time to bake some bread, mixing in the love from heart to head. Kids are in the yard, playing in the sun. Georgie's heart is full, her work has just begun. Evening time descends, setting sun aglow. Homework done, it's family time, the love they show. Streaming out her heart, joys and little fears, friends on the screen she's known for years. Georgie finds a rhythm in the chaos and the calm. Housewife, homeschool, where she feels she belongs. Streaming from her living room, sharing all her charms. Georgie lives her life wrapped in her family's arms. Georgie finds a rhythm in the chaos and the calm. Housewife, homeschooler, where she feels she longs. Streaming from her living room, sharing all her charms. Georgie lives her life wrapped in her family's arms. Family's arms.
Hey, everybody. I know this was a last minute stream. I got off with Coop, expected to get to go lay down. And then I get a notification that there's a Diddy hearing today. So I guess we're going to hop on and watch the Diddy hearing. It's his trafficking indictment. Tim, I heard something about it. I didn't know if it was legit or not. About his security guard. Everything's falling down around him, apparently. Come on. Not working. Bear with me, guys.
About what a little bit. What are we talking about? Taking a step back. As we know, Sean Diddy Combs has been held at the Metropolitan Detention since say it seems like Combs has really released, given that the fact that his attorneys withdrew, he was having this appeal at the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, withdrew that. And so he has lost his bail attempt at every stage. It doesn't appear he's going to be fighting that anymore. He will probably be within the Metropolitan Detention Center during the holidays, during New Year's. His trial is scheduled currently for May of 2025. And let's not forget what this is all about. Sean Combs was indicted on charges of racketeering conspiracy, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. And prosecutors allege that Diddy used his vast networking business, his empire, his wealth, his power, his resources to carry out alleged crimes, to carry out what the prosecution says were these coerced sexual performances with sex workers known as freak-offs. Now, going back to today's hearing, we are expecting a few things. I said we're also the defense's position regarding the government's turning over Brady material, disclosing Brady material. Now, you and I both know what that is. That is potentially exculpatory evidence that could be helpful for the defense. What is the status of that? Also, just to give you a little quote here, Mark Agnifilo, who is Combs' lawyer, submitted a letter, wrote a letter to the judge where he was requesting, quote, the court modify the terms of the protective order that's in place. That's based on what everyone can say about this case, and to address the government's Brady disclosures thus far. So again, we want to get started with your questions and more. I want to bring on right now my special panel of Gear on Studio by Law and Crime's legal counsel, Elizabeth Vulai, and we're also joined remotely by Safa Robinson-Frere, criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor. Great to have you both here. Elizabeth, I'll start with you. What are you expecting in terms of the discussion regarding evidence being turned over? As we know, there are terabytes and terabytes of information in this case. What can we expect to hear?
Yeah, I think there's going to be discussion, obviously, of deadlines of the type of discovery that will be disclosed. You know, in the letter that the parties filed this week, we had the government say, you know, we expect to conclude all of our submission of discovery by December 31st, but they did also say they're still in the process of seizing certain evidence from electronic devices, mobile devices. So I think they will probably, maybe not a detailed breakdown of what they're going to be providing, but definitely timelines, what they expect to provide in the future, and you know, just generally getting everything ready for trial, which will be set in May. Currently scheduled for May. Okay,
yeah. We have an update about what's happening right now inside and outside of the courthouse. First update, Sean Combs' children have arrived at the courthouse. That's not a surprise. They have been supporting him and have been attending every one of his hearings during the beginning of this criminal case. Also, we have an update. The judge's clerk indicated we will bring out the defendant in a moment. Check with Mr. Agnifilo, again, Sean Combs' attorney. Okay, bring out the defendant. They are bringing out Sean Combs. He comes out of the side door in the MDC jail. He is wearing that tan outfit that we've seen before. I say we've seen. It's really been documented in courtroom sketches. There are no cameras in that courtroom. And he is sitting next to his attorney, Tony Rico. Hugs him, then he waves at his other lawyers and those in attendance. Okay, Safo, as we wait for more updates, I had a question for you. So there was a letter that was submitted by both parties during in anticipation of this hearing, and it says the defense's position. The defense intends to file a letter with the court today requesting that the court modify the terms of the protective order to require the government to redesignate a small subset of discovery materials currently designated as inspection only to attorney. We have met and conferred with the government on these materials, and discussions are at an impasse. What's going on there? What does that mean to designate it from inspection only to attorney's possession only?
Well, right now what we know is that there's a protective order that was issued by the judge, essentially saying that some items that are a part of discovery are either going to be withheld for the moment, or they're going to be only viewable through inspection. And what inspection essentially means is that defense counsel and the defendant will be able to go over to the prosecutor's office to inspect these items visually. They will not be able to take them in their possession. So what Mr. Combs' attorney is doing right now is he's making the request for it to be altered to say, Judge, we have inspected these things. We believe that these items that are subject to inspection would be more beneficial to us if we could have them in our possession, and we are making that request to have a certain amount of items that was initially required for inspection only to be given over to us in discovery in our full possession.
Okay, I appreciate you making that distinction because I think that's going to come up today. Okay, we have some questions from our watchers on YouTube. This is from Mystic Angel. At Long Crime, how many charges is Diddy facing? He's facing 3 charges. He's facing a very widespread racketeering conspiracy charge, I should say. And again, that's kind of twofold. So a conspiracy is an agreement, a criminal agreement, and steps that are taken in furtherance of that agreement. And it's to violate the racketeering laws, that this was a criminal enterprise that was engaged in a number of illicit activities: sex trafficking, forced labor, kidnapping. So that's one charge. Then he's also facing sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion with respect to one victim. Then he's also facing transportation to engage in prostitution, which really ties to the idea of bringing sex workers in for the freak-off parties. But you and I both know, Elizabeth, that could change. He could be hit with a superseding indictment because there are reports that evidence is being presented to a grand jury. So those charges could amplify.
Right. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And I think that was made clear in the initial indictment as well, is that, prosecution was still gathering up various forms of evidence. There's a lot of people involved here, a lot of potential evidence. So there's a possibility that just a first initial indictment is just a preview of what's to come.
We have another question from Zatara on YouTube. Is Diddy protected in jail? Based on the reports, there seems to be that he is within this specific unit, and it's not necessarily like he's getting private security, but there does seem to be a sense of protection. There does seem to be a sense of isolating him from others. And at one point, there was an avenue by which his attorneys were trying to get him out of the MDC, which, as we know, is plagued with violence. It's plagued with contraband. There are health issues in there. But ultimately, they abandoned that effort. And I believe the defense had said at one point that the MDC has been responsive to his needs. Saf, I want to go to you for another aspect. I'm going back to this letter that was submitted both by the prosecution and the defense. It says the defense's letter will also address the government's Brady disclosures thus far and argues that the Brady disclosures fail to meet the minimum constitutional standards to which Mr. Combs is entitled. So again, I mentioned what Brady is, again, this exculpatory information. What are they exactly saying? And in a case like this, with these charges, what could be exculpatory Brady material?
Well, what the defense is saying here is that there's an anticipation on their end that there are certain pieces of evidence or information that are considered Brady material. Again, to your point, exculpatory material. Sometimes as defense attorneys, we are aware that this information may exist and we wait for it to be turned over by the prosecutor. Now, it's up to the defense to determine what is Brady material and what is not, what is exculpatory and what is not. And it sounds to me like the defense is expecting that there's a certain key piece of evidence or certain key pieces of evidence that they will likely deem to be Brady material that have been failed to been provided thus far. So they're asking that the court intervene with respect to that. And Brady is an ongoing obligation. The Brady obligation under the United States versus Maryland requires that at any point in the proceedings, whether it's now during the discovery period or even in the middle of trial, that Brady material, that exculpatory material be turned over to the defense attorneys at any point in time that it does exist.
We have a question from True Crime Fan for Life. I love that. So we know where this is dedication right now. We like this. Okay, are they going to bring charges for what they found in his jail cell? And let's just take a step back. There was evidence that is still a point of controversy that when there was this sweep at the MDC, photographs were taken of a number of his writings within his unit. And there was a whole back and forth about whether those were attorney-client privileged or work product privileged that wouldn't be allowed to be seen by the prosecution. Now, the prosecutors, at least within their bail argument that he should be denied bail, said there is evidence that he's been improperly contacting witnesses. And also, I should say, I'll just add to this, there was evidence that he was breaking the rules of the MDC by having three-way phone calls and using other inmates' PAC numbers to contact people that weren't on the pre-approved contact list. Do you think that they are building another case against him with additional charges like obstruction charges, or do you think it's just going to be additional evidence of the underlying racketeering case? I was just going to say that. I think they'll use that to build into the racketeering charge. The racketeering charge is really unique in the sense that it's very broad in scope. Other charges such as sex trafficking or
transportation to engage in prostitution have much more narrowly defined elements, but racketeering just points to this overall general criminal enterprise. So if you have evidence like what the prosecution is saying of him trying to contact third parties, intimidate witnesses, that helps to amplify that charge.
We have another update from court. Appreciate that, by the way, Elizabeth. So another update from court. Judge Subramanian. Good afternoon, Mr. Combs. Combs says, good afternoon. How are you doing today? Judge says, great. What can we take care of today? Assistant U.S. Attorney Emily Johnson says, we will produce all discovery by the end of this year. By the way, Safa, is that surprising that they're able to produce, I mean, all of the discovery? I know there in there more discovery that comes in that they have to produce. This was an indictment in September. It's December now. We are talking about a ton of information. There's been a whole back and forth about what material can be viewed or when it can be viewed by Sean Combs on a laptop at the MDC. Are you surprised? It feels fast they're able to turn all this over, no?
It's been turned over pretty quickly, in my opinion. And you know what? Between the time that he was indicted, until this point in time, I think there's a pretty good track record for how far they've gotten in their discovery disclosures. Now, with respect to discovery, and there was a scheduling order, I believe, that was issued by the judge that also would have had a compliance date as to at what point the prosecution should have completed their disclosures. But discovery also is an ongoing process. I expect that there is voluminous discovery and a lot of information and material that was obtained by the U.S. Attorney's Office in this case. Again, recalling that there were, I believe, 3 raids on 3 separate properties with respect to Mr. Combs. And so all of that information has to be extracted. Those devices have to be extracted, cell phones, tablets, computers, all of those things are constantly being worked on. So although I expect it seems that they're going to be having turned over everything there could be other discovery that comes up later past December 31st that they will also have to continue to turn over.
Okay, we have another update from court. AUSA Johnson, prosecutor in this case, our investigation is ongoing. The judge says, can you tell me how you're complying with the Brady obligations, which we just spoke about? Prosecutor says, we are endeavoring to get them the information they are requesting, including interrogations we conducted. We've given files from victim 1, and you and I both know, Elizabeth, that there is strong evidence to suggest victim 1 is Cassandra Ventura. What do you make of that back and forth?
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. And the fact that they also want to be able to get access to the interrogations, I think, is key. One of the strong themes that we've seen by Combs's defense is that, you know, the way that the prosecution has been handling the case, the tactics that they've used. We saw an order that happened this week of the judge ruling that Combs's request for a motion and a hearing to help determine that the video of him assaulting Cassandra Ventura was leaked by the government, right, which the judge denied. So I think there's a lot of focus on his defense team on the tactics that have been played by the prosecution and how they've gone about prosecuting this.
But in terms of exculpatory material, I would suggest, right, they are still trying to put forward this narrative that she's not telling the truth about the relationship, right? The idea that, you know, if she's running away in that 2016 video, it's not evident she's running away from a freak-off, from sex trafficking, even though, you know, he's in his towel and allegedly beating her in a hotel hallway. But the idea of this is a domestic spat, I guess they're trying to find something in there that says if she really is their star witness, either A or B, this is not evidence of racketeering or sex trafficking, right?
Yeah, I think that's a point that they've tried to hone in on many times. You know, earlier we saw before the video leaked and when she first filed her lawsuit in November of last year that, you know, they tried to frame it as this is a toxic, ongoing 10-year relationship with ups and downs. Obviously, when that video came out, it painted a very different picture. So I think a continuous tactic that we see by his team is trying to point that, as you said, her running away is not necessarily evidence of her running away from a potential sex trafficking situation, but possibly them engaging in consensual acts and then she's therefore leaving. That's what I think his team is trying to hone in on.
We are getting some great questions right now, so I want to combine 2 of them. And Saf, I'm going to go to you. This is a question from Jet. All we have heard about is Cassandra. Where's the others? Where are the other co-conspirators? Where's the superseding indictment? And let me couple that with another question from Irina Dmitrieva. What is the deadline to bringing a superseding indictment?
Yeah, so those co-conspirators and those older victims, we don't know where they are as of yet. Right now, it seems that they're in the grand jury proceedings and process, and so those proceedings are done in secret. We don't know who's there. We don't know who's testifying. It very well could be additional victims who will ultimately be the basis for additional charges, or they could be convening those grand juries in an event to indict other co-conspirators. What the government is more than likely going to do or has been doing is identifying potential co-conspirators, interviewing them, and getting them to flip on Mr. Combs to bolster their evidence. And so that's something that is likely taking place at this time. We won't have any information yet until there's an indictment or a superseding indictment, which we would expect will likely take place before trial.
Well, interesting you should say that. I've said this before with the other times we were doing these hearings. It's almost like the judge and the prosecutors and the defense are listening to this, because what just happened in court? The judge says, when can you tell me about your ongoing investigation and any superseding indictment? The prosecutor, AUSA Johnson, says, I can't say much. We're mindful of the trial date. Any additional charges will have little discovery information. Little discovery? What does that mean? That means there's... I mean, if you're going to bring new charges, wouldn't that delay the trial?
Yeah, I think, or one thing that it could possibly mean is that the new information and potentially new indictments, a lot of the evidence that helps support that is evidence that's already been put forward. You know, because again, I think you have several people involved in Combs's team that helped facilitate a lot of these acts. That's what's being alleged, right? So I think if anything, what that means is the prosecution is mindful that, hey, if we're going to bring in additional charges, we'll make sure to do it in time so that the defense has a chance to respond and prepare their defense, obviously, but that a lot of the discovery has already been disclosed and overlaps with a lot of the other charges. That's what I would imagine.
Mandarin, who else was in that hotel room? I'll answer that really quickly. There has been allegations that there was a sex worker in that hotel room back in 2016, which, again, if that's a key witness for the prosecution to establish that this was an instance of a freak-off, this was instance of sex trafficking, that Cassandra Ventura, assuming she is one of the cooperating witnesses in this case, one of the witnesses, one of the victims in this case, that she was coerced into that. This is further evidence of that. Okay, we have an update from the court. So the judge asked the defense, defense, what do you think about this superseding indictment? Combs' lawyer, Mark Agnifilo, says the pattern of racketeering activities is very vague. They allege multiple acts of arson and kidnapping, but what events? We anticipate a motion for a bill of particulars coming to the court. Safa, I'll go to you. Do you think it is vague? And explain to everybody, what is a bill of particulars?
Okay. So a bill of particulars is essentially a pleading that we file with the court saying, Judge, we don't have enough information to properly defend ourselves against these allegations. We are now asking for the government to particularize with specificity what in other words, they are alleging against us and how they intend to prove it. What specific act constitutes as kidnapping? What specific act, time, date, and place constitutes the arson? And those are the underlying charges in the Racketeering Act. So what the defense is trying to do here is get a little bit more clear information so that they can adequately prepare their defense with respect to this.
And by the way, I believe the arson is with respect to the allegation of Kid Cudi, that Sean Combs had blew up Kid Cudi's car. That was something that was first echoed in Cassandra Ventura's complaint, her civil lawsuit that was filed back in November of 2023. Real quick follow-up on this. I mean, how much is the defense entitled to know about this case? Obviously, they're getting discovery, but don't they need a little bit more of an explanation from the prosecution what the exact charges are, who the witnesses are, what this case is going to look like? Because I think the argument would be, aren't they going to be blindsided? I mean, don't they have an opportunity to present a defense?
Well, one of the important things that has to happen is as we get discovery in our cases, we have to plan for everything. We have to prepare. In what I usually like to do is like to go witness by witness. Any name that is listed in that discovery, I'm generating a file for, I'm investigating that individual, we're looking at the specific allegations in the police paperwork or government paperwork that connects that particular witness to this particular act or activity on a particular, again, time, date, and place, and what information they essentially could be providing and what they will likely testify to at trial. So as defense attorneys, we have to sort of think about that and prepare for that as well. It's not always that the prosecutor is going to disclose that. So we have to be prepared for anything in those situations.
Another update from court. Combs' lawyer, Mark Agnifilo, says if what happened in Mr. Combs' bedroom was found to be entirely personal, we'd view that as subject to Brady, meaning exculpatory information. The judge said, should I deny without prejudice, meaning you can refile it, should I deny without prejudice the request made, understanding that the government will engage in a dialogue with you? So again, this is about the exchange of Brady material. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think it's difficult. You know, I understand the statement that his team is making in that certain information that might be evidence from his bedroom or certain private places would be prone to exculpatory evidence. The problem is that so much of the evidence surrounding this case is extremely personal and would depend on evidence from those types of places. So I think it's the defense team has a tougher time really trying to parse out what could be exculpatory, what's not relevant, what might be more private, because the allegations are premised on such personal acts.
Because he's not charged with sex assault or battery just per se. This is greater than this. This is a symptom of a sex trafficking operation, a racketeering operation. So there's things more here. I want to just go back to you, Elizabeth. I have an interesting question for you. This is from Joyce Tarsick. How did this even get to Diddy getting indicted? I clearly didn't pay attention. First of all, Joyce, thank you so much for watching. Shame on you, okay? You haven't been watching our live shows. You haven't been watching Sidebar. You haven't been watching Crime Fix. You haven't been watching any of our news packages. I'll allow you to briefly explain how Sean Combs was indicted.
Yeah, so again, I keep saying it, but I think so much credit has to go to Cassie Ventura, the lawsuit that she filed in November 2023. Up until that point, at least publicly, people really hadn't heard that much about Diddy in terms of, you know, these type of allegations. You know, there might have been court cases and things like that, obviously the shooting incident that happened in the 90s, but really what happened was in November 2023, Cassie Ventura filed her complaint against him, alleging, you know, that she was sex trafficked, that she was subject to assault and many other, you know, horrible acts. And then once that was filed, we saw a slew of many other lawsuits. Now I think probably in the hundreds of people alleging the same thing. So I think that was what probably led the federal government to start paying attention to this, to also realize that this wasn't just a one-time incident with a one-time victim, that it led to many, many other incidences. And what we saw was raids happening in the spring of Combs's various homes. And then in May 2024, just to break down the timeline, we saw that leak of that video of Cassandra Ventura being assaulted. Government was probably still trying to gather their evidence. Then September 2024, we saw he was indicted with sex trafficking, with racketeering and transportation to engage in prostitution.
Yep, and we have another update from court. This is about this motion regarding the Brady material. Mark Agnifilo, Sean Combs' defense attorney, says we prefer open. We plan to expand it to asking for more specifics. Judge Subramanian says, based on what I've heard, there's going to be a dialogue, meaning a dialogue between the prosecution and the defense. I'm willing to leave the motion open as long as you know I am not ignoring it. Okay, Saf, I want to go to you for another question we have. This is from Nicolette DeCong. And by the way, just to set the stage again, there is a live hearing happening right now in the Sean Combs criminal case in Manhattan. It's about discovery. It is about evidence. It is about a superseding indictment. It is about potentially turning over exculpatory information. We will see what else is discussed here. But this question for you, Safa, any update on his assistant and other staff that have direct access and knowledge to all of this? Are they subpoenaed by the grand jury as well?
There's a really good chance that those have been subpoenaed by the grand jury or by the attorney's office for grand jury presentation. To my point earlier, those potential co-conspirators are those individuals, the assistants, anybody who may have booked a hotel, driven a car to transport someone somewhere, set up lighting in any hotel room. All of those individuals can be deemed co-conspirators. So what is likely taking place, or what has likely taken place, is that the U.S. Attorney's Office has identified these individuals and said, okay, well, we're looking for your cooperation with this. We expect for you to testify in grand jury and to continue to cooperate with our investigation and prosecution, and we will forgo charging you with anything. So essentially, coming into an agreement so that, they can continue forward with their prosecution while these individuals avoid being prosecuted themselves.
Want a quick update from Joyce Tarsick, who I was joking around with, who said, how did this all start? I was just kidding, because she wrote, okay, I will do the walk of shame. I'm sorry I didn't follow, my bad. I was just kidding. First of all, I'm actually happy you asked that question, because sometimes it's good to do a 360-degree, analysis of where we're at. How did we get here? Appreciate the question. I was just kidding with you. Okay, we do have a question here, though, from Bree Smith. If Combs will that stop trial from further investigation? So I'll ask you that, and also the likelihood that he would actually take a plea deal.
Yeah, so if he takes a plea, essentially, most of the time when that happens, the trial doesn't proceed forward. He pleads guilty, let's say, to all of the charges or some of them. I think if he were to take a plea, the prosecution would give a very hard time in not allowing him to plead to just one. They'd pressure him to plead to all. So that's typically what happens, is when a plea takes place, the trial doesn't go forward, obviously. The likelihood of that happening, I think, is very low. Yep. He's had chances to do that within the past few months. I think his attorneys are taking a very aggressive stance on this, which they're entitled to do. They're his defense attorneys. They have to put on a defense for him. I think the narratives that he stuck to in terms of his defense of these are consensual acts, these are consenting adults, these things didn't take place, I think we're going to see that continue to mount further. So I don't think it's likely.
Because he probably thinks he might have a good defense, and if he takes a plea, prison time is going to be on the table, and significant prison time on the table. You don't charge him like this. You don't hold a press conference talking about what he did for years and basically saying, they basically called him a monster and a predator. You don't do that. Unless you are going to move forward with significant, you'd agree to it. He probably would say, let me take my chances. If I lose, at least I'm not forfeiting my chance to appeal it. And the time it takes to appeal it, is probably less time than the amount I would agree at a plea deal. So I want to go back. We have an update from court. The judge says Mr. Agnifilo, any other discovery issues? Mr. Agnifilo, again, Sean Combs' lawyer, says no. The judge says, so on to schedule. By January 3rd, provide the court with any update on the motion schedule. The court's goal is to avoid any kind of surprise at the last minute. Let's meet March 17th. By the way, Safa, are you shocked this is going to potentially go to trial in May of 2025? Assuming there's not a superseding indictment, and assuming if it is a superseding indictment, it doesn't substantially change the case.
Absolutely. I'm not too surprised in the sense that this is a high-profile case. The position that must have taken is that they want to address this as quickly as possible. And Mr. Combs has a right to a speedy trial. So it is not surprising that it looked track to begin trial in March, or excuse me, not March, but May, and that, the adherence to that schedule is being taken serious by both sides. So not really a surprise there. I do expect that if there's a superseding indictment, the likelihood of the trial being delayed will be highly likely, even if there is not any additional discovery that's provided.
That's a good point. I agree. And I also let you know that court has officially adjourned. This was a quicker hearing. We're still going to break down. And also, if there are any pressers or anything that happens outside of that courtroom, we're going to hold it for you. We're going to hold it live. And also, we're waiting for Elizabeth Milner to come out. We want to see what her reaction is and what she observed of Sean Combs in that courtroom. Before I do that, we have more questions. This is a really interesting one. This is a question from Studio 310. What are the chances of ever finding out who the female celebrity is? Will we ever know? I think what this is in relation to is one of the lawsuits that was filed by a woman who claims that she was sexually abused by Sean Combs when she was 13 years old back in 2000 at the VMAs. And she has also sued Jay-Z, saying that he was celebrity A who abused her, but there was a celebrity B, an unnamed female celebrity B who was in that room, has not been named as a defendant. This is a lawsuit that was brought by Tony Busby, a Texas attorney who has filed numerous lawsuits against Sean Combs. What do you think? We'll ever find out who that celebrity B is?
So I think that's all premised on how Jay-Z is planning on handling his defense. So far, he's also taken a very aggressive stance on it. He issued a very long statement about it. He denied it. He actually filed a lawsuit last month against the attorney that brought these claims, claiming extortion. So I think if he's going to continue to put on an aggressive defense, he's probably, and if he's maintaining his innocence, which so far he is, he's going to want to call on that female witness and say, hey, my my take is that this didn't occur. You have to be a critical witness to help my case and also corroborating that and saying that this didn't occur. So I think if he's going to continue to put on an aggressive defense, he's going to want to call her as a witness and say, I didn't witness this.
Well, here's the thing. Here's another way of looking at it, right? Why is she not named? Is she not named because she worked out a deal with Tony Busby, right? Did she already approach him and say, listen, I'm going to settle with you. I'll settle with your client. I don't want to be named in this lawsuit. But I feel like Tony Busby and this unnamed Jane Doe would call Celebrity B as a witness to what she observed. And I don't know if there's a way for her to get out of that, because she will be identified, right? If she testifies at a civil trial, how bad would she look if she was in that room while a 13-year-old girl is being abused? That's the part that I'm thinking about.
Yeah, no, that would be devastating, especially if the witness was an adult female who possibly could have done something, called someone, done something to stop it. So if she's identified, that would obviously be pretty negative to her, even if she didn't partake in these activities.
Yeah.
It's possible that he knew who she was and contacted her beforehand. You know, with Jay-Z, we understood that before these allegations came forward that he had, sent him letters to Jay-Z's claim saying he was pressuring him to, come to some sort of settlement with this claim. So there was communications between Jay-Z's legal team and Tony Busby before this all came to light. So I wouldn't be surprised if Tony Busby has identified that witness or at least spoken to her a bit.
And by the way, with respect to Jay-Z, it came out over the weekend based on NBC reporting that there might be some holes in this accuser's story, which could be very problematic for her case, but actually could be a win for Jay-Z. Okay, we have another question from Greta Winter Carlson. Saf, I'll go to you. All charges against Diddy's alleged drug mule were dropped this week. This is referring to Brendan Paul. Is this an indication that he made a deal to be a witness against Diddy? Now, just to put a little bow on this, we're actually doing a sidebar on it. He agreed to a drug diversion program. One of the drug charges were actually dropped. The possession of cocaine was, ultimately, if he agreed to this kind of diversion program, which he did, it would be suspended. Talk what that means. If he was in this kind of, preferential deal, possession of cocaine and marijuana while he was allegedly on his way to jump on Sean Combs' plane. This was, I believe, 2 days after the raids on Combs' property. Do you think Brendan Paul, who has been named in one of the lawsuits as Sean Combs' alleged drug mule, do you think he worked out a deal to testify against him?
Well, cooperation agreements are typically kept in secret, but the likelihood that this individual cooperated in exchange for those charges to be dropped are highly likely. You don't see drug charges disappear into thin air, and it's not to say that they disappeared, but he's in now a drug diversion program. There has to be an incentive for the prosecutor to even give that type of offer. And so in my opinion, professionally speaking, a good reasoning for that incentive is for his cooperation against Mr. Combs at a later date and time. Or he may have already provided certain information, met with the prosecutor's office to provide information in exchange for a reduced sentence on those drug charges. So very likely, although we may never know that information, or at least for the time being, we might not know the confidentiality of those things, but it is a yes.
Another follow-up question for you, Safa. This is from Workout. You got to throw it in our faces. You make your title Workout. That's fine. That's fine. Anyway, question is, what role will Jay-Z and the female celebrity, maybe Beyonce, have in Diddy's trial? I don't actually think it would be Beyonce. I think it's actually before. If this is 2000, if anybody's a pop culture fan, I don't think they linked up yet. I don't believe that, right? They weren't linked up yet.
Yeah, I think they linked up. This is when my pop culture knowledge comes in handy. I think they linked up around 2002.
Yeah. Okay, so assuming it's not, but whatever, just Beyonce, Jay-Z, what role would they have in Sean Combs' criminal trial? I don't know if they would have a role, Safa.
I don't think so. I don't think Miss Jay-Z has anything to do with the allegations in Mr. Combs' criminal case and his criminal indictment. I don't think he has anything to do with that. I don't think that his wife or his family have anything to do with that. If not, then this would have been addressed sooner, and this would have been brought forth by the prosecutor's office. There's no incentive for Jay-Z to do any of those things because he has nothing to do with it. So I don't know that it would be even likely. And again, he's not charged with anything. Yeah. So although this allegation is being thrown around, the proof is in the pudding. He's being sued civilly. He's not only, if that were the case, that would have been brought to light a while ago. And that's just not the case here.
And remember, the prosecutors have created kind of a timeline of when these alleged crimes happened. It wasn't from 2000. It was from 2008, 2009 to 2024. Not saying that evidence before that couldn't come in, but not every lawsuit and allegation that Sean Combs is facing, including the 3 now that were filed, last week by 3 men who say they were sexually abused by Sean Combs, would necessarily make their way into a criminal case. It was interesting. We have a question from Brushhog1. Wasn't Beyonce like 14 when Jay-Z started talking to her? I think it was 18 or 19, right? There was an age difference.
I think that she was of age when they started dating. From what I recall, being in the music industry, they had known each other, and she became famous very young before she was 18. I think what they both have said is that they didn't start dating until she was after 18, which is...
I think he was in his 30s, right?
There's a pretty big age difference between them, which I think now we look at very differently as opposed to, 15, 20 years ago. But again, that doesn't really have much relation to the allegations that are being made against him.
Yeah, one more question for you. This is from Heather B. Silver Fox Club. Is it possible for Diddy to make a deal that would see other celebrities, cooperators, charged instead of him?
I think that would be very difficult. I personally have never heard of anything like that happening. I think, and Sava had touched on this before, I think what we will continue to see is certain individuals who might have partaken in criminal activity take some sort of plea so that they could be alleviated of criminal charge and forward with any helpful evidence. But in terms of any sort of trade-offs or having other celebrities charged instead of Diddy would be very strange, especially if Diddy actually did partake in those criminal activities as well.
By the way, we're waiting on Elizabeth Milner to come out. As our eyes and ears inside of that courtroom is going to tell. By the way, this is a live shot right now. You see Sean Combs' son exiting the courthouse. As you know, his children have accompanied him many times in this case. And we also know it was one of the points of controversy. They released a happy birthday video from Sean Combs from behind bars. I think it was last month or so, or maybe the month before that. So they have been very active. One of his sons has taken over his social media account, but they have been supporting him through this process. And so there you go, a live shot of outside that courthouse. We're waiting for Elizabeth Milner to come out. Okay, we have another question. Where is it? There we go. This will go to you, Safa. This is from JRN. Do you think other celebrities will be indicted?
Possible, but I think the likelihood is that Mr. Combs is going to be the sole celebrity indicted here in this case. Again, if there were questions about other celebrities that are partaking in this sort of activity, I expect that the government would have discovered that and filed charges by now. So it looks to me as if Mr. Combs is the target of this investigation and of this prosecution. Could other celebrities come into play later? Sure. For example, if there's a celebrity who the government wants them to cooperate as a witness and that person decides that they don't want to cooperate, well, the government has the power to do it.
I wholeheartedly believe he did everything he did. As for finding all the witnesses or the victims, I think they will. Because they need to even go back and look at certain murder cases, certain deaths that happen. Yeah. I think he did a lot more than what he's actually being charged with right now. But that's just my opinion. I think he was involved with the island. I don't mean his island. And remember, we went over the stuff with Aaron Carter right after the last hearing. And the stuff with Justin Bieber. On another note, check out my pause game. Oops.
what we call a material witness order, and essentially says, we're requiring you to come in and testify, and if not, we're going to arrest you. So that could be a way that maybe another celebrity would be charged in this, but at this point in time, I think Mr. Combs is the lone person here.
Before we hit a break, I want to go to you, Elizabeth, real quick. This is another question from Greta Winter Carlson. What is the status of Diddy's next appeal on his bail? When is that being heard? I think we both know he seemed to have abandoned that, particularly in an appellate court. So let me ask you, talk to us about what the status is. And if that's the case, why do you think he abandoned
Correct.
the bail?
So just to rewind a little bit, he's tried through his legal team 3 times to appeal his bail and essentially be released.
By the way, I think it might have been even a 4th time, but it was just for an emergency release. So yeah.
Correct. Yeah, it might have been. It was several times, at the very least 3 times. Obviously, most recently, I think the last time I was on the show, the judge had later denied that a few days after I appeared. So we do know that he officially dropped his appeal with the Second Circuit to be released on bail. I think one of the reasons is that, you've seen denials happen multiple times. So his team has probably said, let's call it a loss. Obviously this is not happening. And then secondly, the trial is less than, I read, 200 days away.
Yeah,
May
right.
will be here before we know. His legal team, especially at the start of the new year, is turning to, we have to prepare for trial. The fact that he might have to be behind bars while he's preparing for that, seems like that's the way it's going to be.
Expend your time, resources, and money the right way, because look, this case is getting pretty expensive. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to get Elizabeth Milner up here. She's going to be our
All right, they're on a break. So, what is y'all's opinion? Yeah, January 3rd, I believe, was the date that they have to have all the discovery in. Any more opinions or conspiracies anyone wants to? Oh, Tyler Perry for sure. Oprah. At this point, I wouldn't doubt anything. We all know the elite in Hollywood is some sick monsters. And why else would Ellen skip country? Because she knows as soon as Trump takes office, they're all going to go down. I believe a couple of the ladies on The View may be involved. Honestly, I think that's why that side over there wants to open the borders and let all these people in. For some type of trafficking ring. Was that one hateful redheaded woman? What is her damn name? think that old witch, because she's the one that talks all the crap about the Republicans. I think she's one of the blood drinkers. I'm kind of on the fence with Whoopi. Yeah, Joy. Taylor Swift. I even think they did something to Britney. I think Britney was one of their victims. Yeah, that's true. And I wonder, Nick, we discussed Aaron, but what about Nick? Did anything happen to Nick or any of the other boys, other Backstreet Boys? It would explain all of her weird ass behavior. Right? It's still on break. Oh.
All right, welcome back to Law and Crime, everybody. So we are covering this live hearing that is happening downtown in federal court in Manhattan regarding Sean Diddy Combs. There was a hearing, short hearing between the prosecution, the defense, and the judge regarding evidence, regarding discovery in this case, and it seems it's progressing its way towards a May 5th, 2025 trial date. But I'm not going to talk about it myself. I want to bring on Elizabeth, who is actually in that courthouse for us. Elizabeth, so good to see you. So two things for you. A, if you could briefly describe what the scene looked like, and more specifically, what did you observe of Sean Combs, who was in that courtroom? And B, what happened in court? What were the big takeaways?
Hey, Jesse. Great to see you as always. Today was a little bit different in that I got to the courthouse got inside the courthouse, I should say, about 15 minutes before 1 p.m. That shows you how early I was in there. And I was actually surprised to see less amount of journalists there kind of waiting for this hearing to get started. And so, comparing that to last hearing where it was just a ton of journalists just waiting to get inside that courtroom, this time was completely different. It was probably about less 20 journalists altogether. So when we were all kind of ushered up into the 15th floor this time, as opposed to the top floor like the last hearing, it was a lot smaller courtroom, but still the similar makeup of the courtroom. So you have one side where it's going to be Diddy's family members, it's going to be the general public, maybe some extra defense lawyers or those who work for the defense side, at least, kind of sitting over to the left side. And then on the right side where I was sitting, it's going to be all flooded with journalists, as well as some other members of the prosecution team who would kind of help with that case as well too. And so we all went up to the courtroom probably around 1:45 today. We're waiting to get this hearing started. It was interesting too because this time around, Diddy was brought in first. He was brought in about a couple minutes after 2 p.m. today, and we were all kind of waiting to see. We had heard mumblings that his mom might be in courtroom, but then nothing happened. But then, in another twist and turn, the children do walk in, but this time it was a lot smaller bunch than it was the last time. So last time you're having all of Diddy's children, except with the exception of Love, who is just a 2-year-old child, so she wasn't at court. But you had all of Diddy's children there except Love. But this time around, you just had Justin Combs and Christian Combs, meaning that there was no Quincy there today. Delilah and Jesse weren't there. Chance wasn't there, and the caretakers of his younger children who aren't of age just yet, they were not present inside the courtroom as well today. But his mom also wasn't in court today. So when Diddy came inside, it was still that standard issued MDC jumpsuit. He's wearing khaki. From that video of, I think that was obtained by Daily Mail back in September, of Diddy playing hacky sack in Central Park, here just astonishingly thinner, which you can expect to be inside a federal detention center for a couple months now. A lot different from the luxury lifestyle that he was living before, but he appeared very noticeably thinner, and maybe being locked up in detention is starting to wear on him. He appeared grayer a little bit as well too, but again, he appeared just like how you would expect Diddy to appear for a hearing. He when he came inside the courtroom, he hugged his attorneys. He especially hugged Anthony Rico. Then he had hugged Alexandra Shapiro as well too, but then he kept kind of looking at the gallery. Now again, this was at a point where Diddy's sons Justin and Christian weren't inside the courtroom just yet, but instead, whenever they came inside the courtroom, and again, this was after Diddy was already sitting down at the defense table, he looked back immediately, he smiled, he beamed up, he waved at at his two sons, and kind of gave them kind of a little bit of it's a good to see you type of feeling. That's what I was gathering from inside the courtroom. And our viewers, that when we're inside federal court, again, there's no cameras, which Jesse, I'm sure you have already mentioned that part, but even for us journalists who get a special permit, just are relying on a notebook, and there's no cameras, which Jesse, I'm sure you have already mentioned that part. But, even for us journalists, with the exception of some who the permission of that, we just relying on a notebook, notepad, a pen, a pencil in order to kind of take notes to see what is all going on. I can't even take my Apple Watch inside that courtroom whenever there's a hearing. I have to turn that in. I have to turn my laptop in. Of course, I have to turn my phone in. So we're kind of just eye watching everything that's going on. Now, when Christian and Justin came inside that courtroom, they were actually sitting just right across from me over on the left side of the gallery. So what I was seeing from both of his sons was a little bit of leg shaking, what I perceived to be a little prayer right before the hearing had actually started as well too. But again, I think their focus was maintaining a good face for their father, being supportive of their father, which you expect at this point because they've attended pretty much all of the hearings so far, with the exception of that emergency hearing that happened, I believe, back in October now. But then they kind of just sat and just kind of listened to what was all kind of happening. Again, that court hearing was pretty quick. It was about 30 minutes long. I think all of us were kind of surprised that the hearing did last that short amount of time as opposed to last hearing, which was about 2 hours or so. But, as our viewers kind of want to get an inside glimpse of what you see at a federal courtroom, you're going to see the defense table and then you're going to see the prosecution table right in front. So it's not like how we see in normal trials where it's like right across from each other. It's like the defense, it is the prosecution, and then of course you're going to have the judge on the bench, and you're going to have the court sketch artist and the person who's kind of transcribing all of what is going on. But that is pretty much the inside glimpse of what I got from inside that courthouse.
And just let's, and appreciate that. That's a really vivid description of what it looks like, because unfortunately we don't have cameras in that courtroom, and there's no cameras expected in that courtroom as this trial progresses, even though there are a lot of people watching this and following it. So just to go back, what were briefly some of the main takeaways about what happened today? What was the discussion about, and where are we left? Where does this case go? What was being decided between the prosecution, the defense, and ultimately the judge?
Yeah, Jesse, it was a lot of just discovery material, which isn't the most fun topic to really talk about, if we're being honest here a little bit. So a lot of things was just turning over evidence, what time frame that evidence will be turned in. And so from what, so the government says that they're on track to produce the discovery by the end of the year, meaning December 31st. They say the investigation is still ongoing. They said that they pulled all the text messages from Combs as well as victim one in this case, and then they're kind of proceeding as quickly as possible to that superseding indictment. It was trying to make it clear that they're still in the process of doing the investigation. It still seems like the superseding indictment is still lingering on in the case. But it was also interesting, too, because, we have covered a number of stories about kind of the response from the defense side and kind of talking with the prosecution here. But I noticed whenever I was inside that courtroom that there was a lot of chumminess going on. There was a lot of laughs, a little bit of giggles coming from Mark Agnifilo talking with the prosecutors right before the hearing had started. So they seemed, you wouldn't think that they're in this kind of, fiery battle or anything about the case. They seem pretty chummy. They seem very cordial. And they both sides seem to have respected each other in terms of turning over that evidence, making sure that every deadline is hit and that type of sort. Now, there was a pending motion that the judge did bring up that Judge Submaranian did mention that he wanted to keep, he was possibly thinking about denying that motion, but instead what he did was the defense time, a lot of music kind of going on here in the background. But what the defense says is that their preference was to keep that motion open. So that way, the judge wouldn't dismiss it with a little bit of prejudice, which means that they could have refiled the motion. But, that didn't happen. The defense kind of appeared that they just wanted the motion to stay open, see what would happen with all of that. But, it seems like we will not be seeing any bit of Diddy until March when the next hearing is going. But it seems like they're all kind of going along with the timeline. It seems that they appear to be ready to get started on May 5th, pending whatever goes on with the potential superseding indictment, which again, I just want to stress to our viewers that has not been, but it seems as though, they're on track for a May 5th trial date. But again, also, with this time frame given, that's 5 months, meaning 5 more months that Diddy is still behind bars until we kind of see how this entire trial plays out. But for the most part, that's what I gathered from this really quick hearing.
Listen, Elizabeth, that is incredibly helpful, and also it's great that somebody drove by with a great taste in music as well. That's a side note, but I will say now we kind of know where this is going. I am still surprised this is headed towards a May trial date. We shall see what happens. Elizabeth Milner, thank you so much for going down to the courthouse, reporting back to us, and great reporting as always. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jesse.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break. Again, I want to thank my guests, Elizabeth Vulai and Safa Roberts, you both so much. Really appreciate it. Great insight and breaking down our questions and also the questions from our viewers. Stay with us.
Well, there's that. And tomorrow we will have a federal case with What the Hell's new documents dropping tomorrow. Not today, tomorrow. But we have 3 more people being added as defendants on the What the Hell's federal case, guys. Maybe it's just Restream, bro. I've been having a lot of issues out of Restream. Like yesterday, I had scheduled a stream and it wouldn't let me in. It wouldn't let me start the live. That's why when I joined with Mike last night, y'all were still seeing that stream. It wouldn't let me do anything with it. It wouldn't let me go live. It wouldn't let me cancel it. Nothing. Can we? Okay. So, who wants to take guesses on who is being added tomorrow? I already know. Thanks to a little birdie. Now remember, this is just Jeremy's side doing the amendment. And it may be why the judge hasn't granted the current amendment is so they could finish adding their people. Sometimes a judge will do that. They'll leave an amendment open, like what they're doing on the Diddy case. They're leaving that motion open until all the discovery is finished on Diddy's case. Bubbles will be indicted. So maybe that's why the judge hasn't approved for Lisa and stupid fuck to be added yet, is so it gives them time for Jeremy's side to finish adding who they're adding to the suit. So one of them is a YouTuber, but not Tori, not Stupid Dave, and not Robbie. The other 2 that are being added, we were reading some of her messages this morning on Shara's video. Number 1, Flea has already been added. Flea and Bubbles has already been added. That was the last amendment. Hi, Hose Picker. No. Not Biscuit Boy. No, but I don't see it being too long before he is too. Patty. Yes. No, y'all gotta guess two more. Patty is the one we were reading her messages in that little group earlier with Bruce and Lynette. No, not Biscuit Boy. However, it is a male YouTuber. And one more female. One more female. Damn, I forgot about. Okay. He recently. This certain YouTuber recently had a falling out with Squid. I love this. I love y'all. I have y'all engaged now. Yes, Marla Huge. Ow! I don't think Wapo had a falling out with Squeedles. Guapo's just a titty baby. Think more LawTube. I love it. I got y'all engaged now, though. This is good. Y'all seemed bored with Diddy. I like it. Yes. Marla looks like she has smoked a carton a day for the last 30 years. MLS. Like I said, yeah. I think there will be many more to come, though. Not Max Lab. Yes, MLS. Her neck has a neck, host picker. Man boobs. Sorry, guys. I had to. Oh! Are you okay? Oh. Come here. Mwah. It's okay, Sissy didn't mean to. I know, but she didn't mean to. Ow. But as soon as I get documents tomorrow when they drop, hopefully it happens before mine and Coop's stream in the morning. Fingers crossed. Okay. It wasn't directly to Tat. He has caused some drama that shouldn't have been caused. That's all I'm gonna say. It's not my place to speak on it. That's all I'm gonna say. I didn't break the baby. His sister broke him. I had to get her to come in here and take my stuff away from him for me. And she was pushing the other desk chair back up under the desk, and he was standing in front of it, and he wasn't paying attention, and he wouldn't move. And she ran into him with the chair, and it hit him in the nose. Max didn't post that DJ was too scared. That was Thomas, baby. That was Thomas that said that Tat was scared. Indictments. Next round of defendants being added. MLS, Marla, and Patty. I have a PO'd baby. March 13th, right, Tim? For the next Diddy hearing. I wasn't even expecting this one. It come up out of nowhere. Not necessarily, Robert, because it can become a what's the word? There's a certain word for it when there's multiple defendants like this. You're fine, darling. That's what I'm here for. If I can correct something and I have an answer for it, February 3rd. I thought they said March. Yeah, this Diddy hearing came out of nowhere. Yeah, class action. My brain's not braining today. I woke up with a weird headache, and I've just not been on my game today. Yeah, the answers that y'all are seeking about Max is in the song. Just listen to the lyrics. I know May 5th is the May 5th is the sentencing. February 3rd for ruling on discovery. Thank y'all. I heard it, but when Tiny starts screaming, my brain is like, nope, I forgot what they said. May 5th is the sentencing, the trial. Yes, hose. It's up and running, darling. Also, I la- I launched the fourth wall, and I have a server now for the channel. I'm joining in the times. Bye, Robert. Be safe. And I'm going to do another stream one day this week where y'all can design some more merch, because I want the merch to be what you guys want. I want y'all to feel like y'all are included on how the merch is made. So taking you through the steps of designing what's going to go on the items, I feel like would make y'all enjoy it even more. You're good. Take your time, hose. I'm not gonna ask anyone to buy it. I'm just gonna give y'all the options. Hey, this is here. If you want it, get it. If not, oh well. I enjoy playing on Canva, so you're watching your neighbor chase her chickens. It has been a yucky, rainy day all day. Yay! Paul, you watch my numbers better than I do. We're getting there. We're getting there. I'm glad you all came and joined with the Diddy stream. I know y'all have been following that and enjoyed keeping up with it. I wasn't expecting a hearing today. I got off stream with Coop, was fixing to go lay down, and I saw that there was a Diddy hearing at 2 o'clock Eastern, and I was like, crap. Let me set this up real quick. Oh, we have Legal Vices at 99.2 thousand subscribers. Let's go. Just a few hundred away. Wow, Paul. I was looking at the coffee cup. I thought of the brain sitting on a blue bucket. Hey, I'll have to see if I can find one with the brain with the legs and the arms that looks like it's sitting. Wow. That's awesome. I think I think it was Tim that told me that when he hits 100,000, it has to sit at 100,000 before they ship out the plaque. That trying to remember if there was anything else I wanted to bring up. We're still working on the bathroom. Still filming. So it might be a minute before that comes out. It's going to be a bigger video than what I usually put out. So I'm doing my streams to keep content out there. Trying to jump in all the streams I can. I don't either. Man, bingo with Megan's not going to be the same anymore when they're covering stuff. I may have a couple cooking vids in the works with Christmas coming up. This time of year is when I start making my sweet treats for the kiddos, and Santa cookies and whatnot. So but with the new year coming up, there should be much more content, more ideas, because we go on vacation in March and we're spending a week in Florida, and for sure gonna film down there. Not the whole time, but there's gonna be a lot of stuff I do film. Absolutely. I sat and I boo-hooed in Megan's stream yesterday, especially when Connor called. And Connor sounds just like Jeff. His laugh sounds just like his dad. And it's like, just for a minute we had Jeff in there. I was boo-hooing, and then Megan started crying, and it broke me. Paul, listen, every time I make treats, these kids devour them before they're even cool. I try to get them over in a cookie jar, and they have them devoured by the end of the night, no matter how much I make. Once I start making more stuff, because not everything I make has a recipe. It's like with my biscuits and gravy and stuff, it's something that I learned from my grandparents, and it's just been something that's passed down through the family. There'll be several things that I make that actually has a recipe, like say I got an idea off Pinterest or TikTok or something, then yeah, I'll have a recipe card on the screen and in the description. But if it's a family recipe, it's not actually a recipe. You just toss a bunch of stuff. You know what I mean? Uh-huh. I missed that one this morning. I hope he leaves it up. It would be super cool if he took it over and kept it going in Jeff's honor. That would be so cool. Yeah. And with my server, there'll be behind the scenes stuff where y'all can see the kids and have more get to know Georgie time. But as for my channel, I maybe in videos there'll be like glimpses of them, like I did with the Christmas tree decorating video. There'll be little glimpses of the girls here and there. But when I'm streaming, that's why I don't have my camera on. Because Tiny, he hates the feeling of clothes. I'm lucky to get him to keep clothes on when we're out in public. So, yeah, I definitely will have my camera on during streams because of Tiny. He's usually in his undies. Because he hates clothes. And if he has clothes on too long, he starts freaking out. And it irks his nerves. Hey, I mean, he's at 99.3, just a few hundred away. It's only a matter of time. I have my kids' accounts connected to my phone, and I just went to their accounts last night and subscribed to him. And then I jumped on my husband's and subscribed to him. Whatever it takes to help Jeff to get to 100K. The link to the Discord is in the channel description. Yeah, but not as good. And Libby sucks. Ain't nothing better than a homemade gravy and a homemade from scratch biscuit. See, even Paul agrees. Nothing to ever beat from scratch biscuit and gravy. I'll eat canned biscuits every once in a while when I don't feel like fighting with a whisk to make gravy. It's not Libby's. There's another can of gravy, and it's the only kind my stepmom would buy, and it's the only kind I'll eat. I can't remember what it's called, but it's a specific brand. And that's the only other thing besides my from scratch. Are they? I love y'all. I just don't see how I intrigue y'all. I'm boring. But I'm glad y'all are here. I am gonna start I gotta restart my sourdough starter. My other one died. So I gotta make another starter so I can make y'all some sourdough pancakes on a video. And I make sourdough cinnamon rolls. And sourdough bread. I have a brownie recipe for sourdough. And then I have like 12 Amish friendship bread starters in the freezer. I may start one of those and do little video clips each day of me having to feed that one. Wait, your best one what? Did I miss something? Hi, Kat. How are you, darling? I do, though. I love and appreciate every single one of y'all, especially y'all, the ones of y'all that stick with me no matter how boring I get. You're just here to listen to me ramble, and I appreciate it. Tim, it's not hard to make your own biscuits, and it ain't hard to make your own gravy. Just watch my video and do what I do. As long as you got a cast iron skillet, there's nothing you can't make. I know. I'm so excited for him. I am. I am boring, but I seem to entertain y'all. Good deal. I did. I used all my daughter's accounts and subbed to Jeff, and then I got on my husband's phone and I subbed to Jeff. Absolutely. You still like the accent? I don't have an accent. Oh, I guess to y'all I do. He's at 99.4 thousand subs. Let's go. Yes. Mod, y'all can post Jeff's link. I don't, more than likely all 30 of you that are in here already have Jeff, but just in case. Aw. Y'all are great. Look, Tim and Paul both was on it at the same time. How I like those Boston accents. When I first started TikTok, we had this friend on there, and he was from Boston, and boy, did he have a strong Boston accent. And like he would pick on us about our southern accents, and we would pick on him about his strong accent, and we'd argue over who had the accent. Girl, when I first started and I was on with Coop, we had one come in making fun of our accent, and the whole chat just devoured that person. We ain't seen that person since. I will forever hear, "Oh, for fuck's sakes, Megan," when they drive. "You ran a red light, Megan." Watching Megan along driving is hilarious, but when Jeff is on there with her, even better, even funnier. Wise Angel, is your accent as strong as Spawn's? Because, like, I have to completely just go quiet to understand Spawn most of the time. Because most of the time I can't understand him. Oh my gosh. Yes, Paul. Jeff's outburst when talking about Judge Grudge is great. They both make this case fun. There is Cat. There's so many different accents. So, like, we have in the southern states, a Tennessee accent is so much different than an Alabama accent. And then there's the Floridian accent, like Coop. Then there's the Georgia southern drawl, and Louisiana with the Cajun drawl. And then there's the Texan. Texas is their own different breed. Really, Tim? All right. In that case, of me rambling and just talking about random things, post Rosalind's link in the chat. And right after I play my goodbye song, I want you all to go over to Rosalind and tell her that Georgie sent you. Yeah. Now, when he's talking his slow, calm voice, I can understand him. When he's being calm and talking normal, I can understand every word he says. But when he gets excited or angry and he's talking fast, I can't understand a word he's saying. And I'm just like, Spawn, slow down. Oh, yeah. Ginger Billy is a whole nother breed. Yes. Post Rosalind's link for me, mods. And I will play our goodbye song. And then I want y'all to go over there and let her know that Georgie sent you. And give her all the love. Rosalind needs all the love. She hasn't been live in forever. I love you guys. Remember, you're one of a kind. And never let anyone dim your light.
Georgie's gotta go for now. She's got a role to play. Kids are calling, life's a sprawling, never a dull day. She loves all her subscribers, each and every one. But mom, life's calling louder till the setting sun. Goodbye for now, dear friends, till we meet again. Georgie's heart is full of love for every message sent. You're one of a kind, don't let them dim your light. She'll be back real soon, till then, good night. In the quiet of the evening, when the kids are fast asleep, Georgie reads your messages, a treasure she'll keep. Though she's busy now, her mind's on you all, wondering about your days and nights as the raindrops fall. Goodbye for now, dear friends, till we meet again. Georgie's heart is full of love for every message sent. You're one of a kind, don't let them dim your light. She'll be back real soon, till then, good night. Mom's life is a journey full of ups and downs, but in every single moment, love's the sweetest sound. She'll be back to share her stories, her laughter and her tears. But for now, she blows a kiss to you near and dear. Georgie sees the beauty in every simple thing, from the morning light to the quiet night, and all the joy it brings. So hold on to your passions and let your spirit soar. She's grateful for your love and can't wait to share more. Georgie sees the beauty in every simple thing, from the morning light to the quiet night, and all the joy it brings. So hold on to your passions and let your spirit soar. She's grateful for your love and can't wait to share more. Oh. Goodbye for now, dear friends, till we meet again. Georgie's heart is full of love for every message sent. You're one of a kind, don't let them dim your light. She'll be back real soon, till then, good night.